Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Uh, and today's video is about books. So two of the most well-respected person that I really like following. It's Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. And over the last few years, when I reading articles, whenever I read about them, they do mention about reading it constantly, improving your skill, improving your knowledge. No matter how old you are, even though Warren Buffett is like 90 something now and he's still reading. So that's something that a small habit that I picked up like about a year ago, and ever since then I try to read like a few pages a day. And so in 2004, I did read a couple books, finished them. So I'm glad I did that. And so today I want to review one of the book that I think that's probably one of the top um, pick for me in 2004. And I just recently finished this book, and a lot of the point on this in this book actually makes sense after I ponder and like I think about it a bit. So I just want to bring it up and then maybe give you a couple example of how looking back what's been written or talking about in this book makes sense so much. So the title of the book is Full Fee Agent. So here's the book. Grab it from Amazon. It's like $15 or something. It's coming from that. So even though the book itself is written for a real estate agent, but I believe all the point, most of the point in here, will be relevant to most people, like anybody that wanna improve their career or wanna being able to create a relationship so that it help them in the long run. If especially if you're in this the sales job, then this book is perfect for you. Even though it's written for a real estate agent or a real estate broker, but I'm pretty sure it's helpful for everybody else. So if you have time, pick up the book and read it. It's a short read. It's only like maybe a couple hundred pages long. You can read it like in a couple city. I myself I only read like maybe 10 15 minutes a day, so it take me a while. But after I finish the book, it's one of my top pick for 2024. So there's a couple point in here. One of the chapter in here they talking about a favorite or a fool. So the book emphasized that you know before, like for us real estate agent, before you meet with a client, um they already you already want they already label you in one of two character, like one of two category. You either their favorite or you either a fool. And the book talk about like before you met with somebody or even doing your listing presentation with them or doing your buying presentation with them, they already either choose you or they just use you to kind of like pick your brain, and but then they're gonna end up hiring somebody else anyway. And looking back, I noticed that this this point is very relevant because a while back I have a listing appointment with one of this referral, and I try my best to cater to what they need, but it ended up like she's still working with one of her other agent, which is like I'm pretty sure she talked to that person before, but but then she's just trying to get me to lower my fees to a level that that makes sense for her and the other agent. Even though afterward, like when I found out that the agent, well, the agent still charged her like a higher fees than what I was able to, to offer, but then the quality of work is not the same. The agent cut on every corners that could have been cut. For example, like the listing itself doesn't even have like like eligible photos. They have like a couple of photos at random places, and then even have people in the photos. Even though the agent charged her like a close to a full fee. So looking back, I think that from now on, like I only the book tell you to just focus on the people that you think they are your favorite, because for every 10 15 people that think you're full out there and then wasting your time, that time could have been easily saved if you work with somebody that you're happy to work with, you're like to meet, and you enjoy working with, and they don't try their best to to kind of like belittle your skill. It happened to me a couple of times. Like if you looking at one of my other video about like how I fired one of the client that the first time if I fired like a client, uh, there were so many red flag in that in that span of like 2 years I worked with them, that it should have given me enough information to kind of like cut them off sooner and not wasting that time. Because the one thing is like they have a relative that have a license. The other thing is like they work with me, but then they're not completely truthful, and they try to hide all the time. And sometimes it's at the end of the day, I feel like I put my best work out for them, but they don't. I'm always like the backup, because when I'm not there, or when they can, they try to go behind my back and work with the seller directly, or or working with their relative directly. This is right before we need to sign like the buyer broker agreement. So in our market, like up until this point, we don't ask the buyer to sign that beforehand. But then now with the new rule changes like that, I think that's a good reason why we work with somebody that at the beginning we try to figure out if they are like if you're their favorite first. And if they are, then you spend time with them, and you try your best work, you put your best effort with them. And for the people that you feel like they thinking you're like a fool and just use you for whatever reason, or aren't completely honest with you, then it's best just to cut them off. Like there are plenty of clients out there that value your skill, so chasing after every single lead is not the recommended method. And I believe this book is spot on about that. And I looking back, I think I could save so much time, and just reading those red flags and acted on it. Because if people are like unwilling to sign a contract with you, then by a broker agreement with you, then you already know that they're not going to be able to honor their end of the deal and work with you exclusively. And if they're not working with you exclusively, then why you waste your time, like looking for a property for them, or doing all the comps, sending their way, and trying to negotiate with the agent on the other end for them. It happened to me a couple of times, so now I figure that must be true. Anyway, the second chapter on one of the chapter on the other chapter on this on this book is no more free consulting. So like your everything that you're taught, like you're bringing up. If they have question for you, you bring it up. I mean, for the small thing, that should be fine. But then you have to understand that you have a certain skill that they need, and in order for them to get that information from you, they should they should have some kind of contract with you. This is speaking with about real estate only, for a real estate agent or real estate broker. So if they were, like I said, going back to the other one, if they were unwilling to sign a contract that they're working with you exclusively for a certain period of time, then you know that there's a chance, like a good chance, that they will not end up closing a deal with you. And with us, like as a real estate agent, the only way that we make money is somebody close the deal with you. So close the deal, and you're the one that helping them to close the deal. So even if you take them all the way to 99% of the transaction, and at the end they cancel like last minute, you get nothing. So like the other client that I had, like 2 weeks into escrow, they cancel, and all my work is like it's a complete waste of time. All the negotiation, all the inspection, all the hours that I have to look through the contract for them, review it, sending it for them for a signature, all those become zero. And and for somebody to to try to use your skill to better them, but then at the same time can stab you in the back as uh, as the opportunity come, then it's best to not work with them. So so no more free consulting mean, or at least that's what I think the book mean, is just don't give out free work. If they want your knowledge, if they want your skill, if they want your opinion on something, if they want your help in running the comp, or if they want your help in running the rent estimate or the cash flow estimate for an investment property, then they need to be willing to sign a contract that they're gonna be working with you, instead of like using your data, your information, and then go and work with somebody else. So that's another chapter in this book that it's totally relevant to my line of work, and I'm gonna try to follow that ideas. The first and then the next one is get the elephant out early. So this means that whenever there's bad news or there's bad like something bad come up, just bring it up right away. The reason for that is it's it's always gonna come up anyway, and if you're trying to hide it, it's just gonna get things, it's gonna get make things worse. So if something happened, like let's say, if the seller, like let's say you're working with a seller and then the buyer coming in with like a low, kind of like a low offer, just give it to the seller, like straight up, be honest with them, said, oh, they don't offer up until your price, we need to do something about it, instead of like trying to hide it or trying to give reason why there's no offer or something like that. Just give them straight up and let them think about it. That's one good thing about this book, that gave you like kind of like bracing them. The term that you use is you you praise the client, so you give them like something, like for example, like the other day, so I have a client who liked this house, it lists for 740, and if this was 740, it lists only for 2 weeks, and then my client loved the house, but my client, which is a buyer in this case, uh can't afford more than 700. So instead of like going straight out and trying to like giving reason, stuff like that, to the sales agent, I brace her first. So the first text I text her was like, oh, I had sorry, but I have bad news. And that text, like I didn't get the response right away. At first I thought, oh, it might be something, she might not like the message that I sent over. But then, so I keep on feeling like, oh, I need to do something more because I haven't got a response from her. But the book itself told you that, oh, just give them this, bracing them for the bad news, let them, let that sink in, let them think about it, because a lot of time people will think of the worst possible. Like people will say, oh, maybe they don't like the property anymore, maybe they find something that's better, or maybe maybe the buyer no longer interested in the property, or family member don't like the property anymore. But the case is, it's like the buyer itself, they like the property, it's just that they can't afford it. So I gave her that text, and the seller agent, she didn't even respond to me for 2 whole days. Before that, she always responded to me like right away. So for that text, like for that, sorry, I have bad news text, she didn't respond to me for 2 whole days, and I was like, oh man, should I do something? Should I do something, or should I stick to the book? Just the book teaching and just like wait for it. But I ended up decided to sorry, I ended up decided to wait for it, and on the second day, she texted me back, said, "What's the bad news?" And I'm like, "Oh God, that's when I know that she's gonna be on my side. I already built that relationship with her, that I should be able to release the give her the bad news and then give her the reason for it." So I text her back and said, "Oh, and then another thing that the book's talking about is like you have to give yourself label self, like think of the worst thing that they might think about you and speak it out, and then let them back out of like being giving you like the worst label." So my text my actual text to her, let me read it, because it's a long one, but it's very, I think it's very powerful. Jennifer, let's see, Jennifer. Okay. So the first text I text her is like let's see, it's like oh, I have bad news. Sorry, Jennifer, I have bad news. It take her like 2 days to text back. I text her on Saturday, and then she didn't respond to me until Monday, which is like a long time. So I'm pretty sure like there's like ton of like worst case scenario, the worst case scenario that going through her head. Like why? So she texts me back, "What is the bad news?" And I'm like, so I'm start putting like label on myself, like bad label. So like, oh, you might think that I'm not doing a great job as an agent, especially since it seems like my clients are being unreasonable by not accepting the seller fair counter offer. However, the truth is the lender has reduced the loan amount and increased the down payment requirement to a certain percentage because the condo have an HOA. This has created a financial challenge for my client, and because of that, their max is still 700, the original offer that they offer, instead of going up to the counter offer of like 720 for the buy for the counter offer of 720 from the seller agent. And with that text sending out, I'm like, oh, and then at the end, I'm like, oh, I don't want to waste her time or the seller's time by sending over the counter offer without changing the price at all. Would stick to the say the original 700, and I'm even asking for her permission, like, oh, should we even bother to send the counter offer back at 700, or should we just like move on? And then by this time the agent is already on my side because with the text that she asked what's going on, like what's the bad news, then the book told me that that by that time like she already like kind of like align her thinking with me, feeling that we already built up a good relationship. So she texted back, I don't want to speak for the seller, but I always think it's a good idea to keep trying, so just go ahead and try. I'm like, oh, that's great. Now the agent understand that we're not messing around, we're not messing with the offer, but the count offer, or we're not greedy or nitpicking, but then we actually have a hardship, and then that by that reason like they can't offer any more than they originally offered. So it's a good idea, and it turned out like now we have the open escrow for that property, and we're gonna hopefully we're gonna close in 2 weeks. But that's one of the point that's very strong in this book, and you'll just bring the bad news out early. But before you bring out the bad news, make sure you brace the other side. Like if it's your client, you brace them, and give them like oh, I have bad news. That's like that technically is like it's the exact text that the book tell you to say. Sorry, the name of the person, and then I have bad news, and then stop there, silent. Just don't say anything until you get the okay from them to ask you what's the bad news. Because if they don't ask you what's the bad news, then that means they, no matter what, they're not gonna accept your explanation. But if they do, that means they already based themselves to the worst possible. It could have been, oh, the deal won't ever happen because no, the other side no longer want it or something, or something happened to the other side, and the deal can't even start. But then so they think of the worst, and then you give them something that is 99% better than the worst. If that makes sense. Okay. And then the next point in this book is put the responsibility where it belongs. So you're as an agent, you have your set of responsibility. If it's something that's your fault, own it up to it. But if it's something that's not your fault, don't take it on yourself that it's your fault. For example, let's say if you give the owner if you give the owner a suggestion to list a house under a million because comps around the area, or a million or slightly above, but your client you know insists on listing at 1.2. Like I have a client that just did that. So if the house doesn't sell, it's not your fault. You already give them enough information, and you should have to tell them that, oh, you listed the house for 1.2. It's been a while on the market, like let's say 2 or 3 weeks or a month. What you want to do about it? Don't suggest them. Don't give them a suggestion to lower price. Just ask them how would they like to proceed. That and then yeah, and then make sure that if it's your responsibility and you mess up something, own up to it. But if it's not yours, don't put it on your shoulder, because you can't solve every single issue. There are multiple, like there's ton and ton of issue in the transaction that you can't solve. And sometimes if it's out of your hand, don't feel so bad that you can't control it, because technically you can't control it. For example, like a while back I have a client, we went into escrow for 2 weeks, loan contingency is coming up, and then the client herself found out that she just got laid off from her job. So at that time we're scrambling, thinking of the worst that could happen, but then we're ended up just being honest with the seller agent. Say, oh, this is what happened. So our company just told her that she's gonna be laid off, and the lender's gonna do a verification of employment. What you want us to do? And when I give that to the seller agent, she understands, and she's like, oh, just just we're already 2 weeks into escrow. What's another week? So we just go ahead and do it for another week and see what happened. So when the lender do a verification of employment, they found out that she's still on the system. So even though the lender call in, the HR department in her company still verify her that's still there, because she's not gonna she even though she's gonna be laid off, she's not gonna be removed from the system until 2 months later. So then it's just yeah, like things happen just because, like, it doesn't have to be like any sort of like like kind of like like if it's out of your control, then you just don't have to uh put that weight onto yourself. So just put the responsibility where it belongs. And then the next point they have is let them say no. So this is actually very, like, it's against everything that we learn as a salesperson or a real estate agent. A lot of time, like, we thought that by setting up all the yes question, we're building up the momentum, and we will kind of like being able to manipulate the person to keep on saying yes. And then when we hit the person with the important question, they're gonna continue to say yes. Well, in the book, it's actually go against that. It said, try to find the no, because the no is when the person on the other end, when they give you a no answer, that means they are safe. And once they are safe, they will open up to listening to you. So so instead of like oh, when you call somebody, like, let's say if you're a telemarketer, when you call, like, oh, is it a bad time to call you? It's most likely it's gonna be a no. um, so try to get the no out from them first, and then building it into a yes later, instead of like aiming to get the yes out from the other person. Because when they say yes, 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 then they're gonna start building up their defense, and then they will completely like ignore the important question that you bring up at the end. So that's one of the other point. And then another one is nail the lasting impression. So this one is mean that the last impression is one very important. No matter how good the transaction went from the beginning to like the 99% point, no matter how good it is, if the last 1% is bad, that's gonna stick with the client, and then that's gonna be the thing that they remember the next time they need somebody to work with. For example, let's say all your transactions are good until the last very end, but then you promise something to the client, and then after closing you forget it or you ignore your promise. They can remember that, and that's gonna be what hold them against you next time they work with you. The book give you an example of how Oprah Winfrey, like every single guest star that come into her show, they arrive in a limousine, and then the host or the channel or Oprah always make sure that they arrive in a limousine and then they leave in a limousine. Like, they have the good impression, like all the people that show up at her show. I think I watched it once or twice, but I noticed that she's very generous with her audience. So every single time she needs something from them, like let's say she needs to fill up a an audience for her show, people always willing to do it. So this is another point that the book is talking about, like nail the last impression. I mean, no matter what, like make sure that from the beginning until the very end, the last percentage, you know, the client is happy with your work or with your promises or with whatever you tell them that you're gonna do, and don't kind of like don't go back against it, or don't don't do the 99% of the work and then mess up the last 1%. Okay, and then the last one is be a full service, a full fee agent. So that is mean just like make sure that you value your skill, and that you don't go around and hunt for the kind of like don't go around and hunt for the client that is only looking for the cheap service or the discount service or the service, or the people that can give them the most discount. Because at the end of the day, the thing that they don't actually realize, those kind of client, they don't actually realize is that, you know with 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 the quality of the service, it make a lot of difference. It could save the them thousand of dollars. It's just that, sometimes, like, when they're in the middle of something, they don't realize that. So I had this client, right? Like, this is before the signing of the buyer broker agreement. I had this client, worked with them for a couple of times, and then showed them like multiple houses. I didn't have a signed agreement with them because, before the law, so I didn't know it's important because of my industry too, like, my area of work. Like, nobody here asking our client to sign the buy broker agreement, right? So I worked with them for a while, and then I think like half a year or so, and then, one day they came to me and they said, oh, you know I I have somebody else that want to sell their house to me, and they don't want to work with any agent, so there will be no commission for me or for anybody. So I'm like, okay, if you want to work with that person, then that's fine, go ahead. But then I didn't tell them that don't come back to me, because I thought, if they already do that, then in their mind that they know that, if they cut that, like, if they destroy that bridge, and they shouldn't come back. But who would have, like, kind of like, who would be so shameless as to come back, right? But then it turned out they come back. Oh, or they, a couple weeks later, the deal didn't work out, so they come back. And okay, let me try that again. But this time, this is before I read this book. Like, this is something that I'm never gonna do again, because I know now that it's not a good thing to do. But anyway, they came back. I'm like, okay, let's see if, if they willing to work with me, like, because it's kind of like, it's somebody that I know. It's like, it's kind of like, somebody that I know. So I thought that, I can do them a favor. I doing it for them again, and then, so I did it, and then a couple weeks later, with like, 10, 15 houses showing. One of the houses, like, they list for 850. They offer, my client offer 835. The seller counter 842.50, and the client hesitated. And then a day later, the seller pulled back the offer because they have a higher offer, so they lose out on a good house. And this is a good house. It's in a good area. Square footage is big, like 1,600 square foot or something. And then it's like the layout is very, very good. And I thought that's probably the house that they could have gotten if they acted fast or, quickly, but they didn't. So I'm like, okay, that you know it is what it is, right? But then a week or two later, they came back with me again. They said, oh, they have another person that want to sell them the house, and that person don't want to work with an agent, and I will end up with no commission again. I'm like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Like, oh, I couldn't do this anymore. So I'm like, okay. And then this is right when the buyer broker agreement law take into effect. So I'm like, okay, the next time they come back, I will bring this up. I'm like, you will have to sign this contract if you want to work with me again. And so, well, turned out it happened. The deal fell through. They weren't able to, to buy the property that they thought the seller was going to sell to them. So they didn't end up buying it. And then they came back to me a couple weeks later and asking me, oh, can you show me this house again? Like, another house. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I bring up the whole, like, oh, it's required by law now. Now you have to sign this paper so that, I don't get kicked, kind of like shove it to the curve if you find a deal that the seller don't want to work with a buyer agent anymore. Because then at the end of the day, I won't have any fee. Like, I don't get any commission, right? So I'm like, I bring it up to them. They said, oh, let me think about it. And then they thought about it, and then they refused to sign that, that contract. I'm like, okay, that's good. Now I don't have to waste time with them anymore. So, and then that by that time, later on, like a month or two later, I found out they buy like a house. I don't know, like, I haven't been to the house, but from word of mouth, like, it's like in the 900s, and it's like, it's not even in the best shape. So I'm like, okay, see, now for those kind of clients, right? Don't ever think about, oh, they will go with somebody else if you don't agree to, like, stoop to the level of, like, of like their service. Like, you don't have to work for free. So with this book in mind, like, after reading this book, I think there's a lot of things that I will be able to use to change the way that I do business, and I will for sure try to look for the red flag right at the beginning. All the people that think I'm a fool, to be honest, like I don't want to spend any amount of time with them anymore, and that will free me up so much time to be able to work with people that value my service, value my skill, and and work with me, and will be able to show up every single day, meet them at the open house or at the showing, be happy, and not have anything to hide. Because the one that really want to hide are the one that don't trust you enough, and if they don't trust you enough, then there's no point for you to trust them enough to to spend your time looking for the deal for them. So anyway, the book is The Full Fees Agent. I love this book. Probably gonna read a couple more times, but yeah, but this book is very easy to read. So for any agent out there that looking to for something to pick up, this is a recommended book. I read this. Just finished it like 2 weeks ago, but a lot of ideas or a lot of point in this book make sense. And anyway, with that, I'll see you next time. Thank you, and make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can provide more real estate tips, financial advice tip, whatever kind of tips that you want to do. I do have a yeah. So yes, and I'll try to upload a new video every single week. Alright, thank you. Bye.